All right, today we're cracking open the architectural system from John R. Miles's Passion Struck. The core idea behind it's pretty simple, actually. An intentional life isn't something you find, it's something you engineer. So let's take a look at the blueprint.
So the book kicks off by diagnosing the default setting for so many of us in modern life. It asks a really piercing question. Are you actually living, or are you just running a pre-written script? In a world that's constantly throwing things at you, it's way too easy to slip into what Miles calls quiet desperation. Basically, a system of just existing without any real intention behind it.
And this leads us to the book's core diagnosis, the pinball life. Just picture it. You're the ball, trapped inside a machine you didn't design. You're just ricocheting from one thing to the next, an email, a text, a demand, a crisis, until all your energy is just gone. It's a system that's built for constant motion, but not for actual progress.
But here's the good news. The book proposes this really powerful alternative framework. It presents a fundamental choice, two totally distinct operating systems for your life, and that is the architectural choice we're going to deconstruct today.
And you can really see the huge difference between these two ways of operating. On one side, you've got the reactive, chaotic system of the pinball, and on the other, you have the intentional, purposeful system of the player, the passion-struck life. And look, the difference isn't about just trying harder. It's about upgrading your entire blueprint. So what actually sparks this huge shift from being a pinball to being a player? Well, it's not some random burst of motivation. It's what Miles calls mission anguish. You know that deep, uncomfortable feeling that there's a gap between who you are right now and who you know you could be? That feeling isn't something to ignore or numb. No, that's the signal that it's time to architect a real change.
And that brings us right to the core of the blueprint itself, 12 intentional principles. You can think of these as the structural components, the load-bearing walls for building this whole new life. And they're broken down into 3 key phases.
So this first phase is all about your internal architecture. It's about getting in there and rewriting the subconscious code that dictates our actions before we even realize what's happening. Let's break down the first 4 principles.
First up, we lean directly into that mission anguish. Instead of running away from the discomfort of your untapped potential, you actually harness it. It becomes the main energy source, the fuel for this entire project of transforming your life. Next, we have the perspective check. Because, you can't really fix a problem if you can't see it clearly. This principle is all about cognitive reframing, learning to step back and see that what looks like a giant brick wall up close might actually be a staircase if you just change your angle. Okay, principle 3 gets right down to the very foundation. Your belief system. We all have these limiting beliefs that are kind of running like old, buggy software in the background. The goal here is to run a full diagnostic, find that faulty code, the I can't do that or I'm not good enough, and actively rewrite it.
And the last piece of this mindset puzzle is brand reinvention. I love this. You treat your life like you're the CEO. If your current brand, your reputation, your habits, isn't producing the results you want, then it's time for a strategic rebrand, aligning what you do on the outside with who you really want to be on the inside.
So, once that new internal architecture is in place, we move on to the second phase, optimizing behavior. This is where the blueprint really starts to translate into action. It's all about engineering the mechanics of how you operate day to day. The book introduces a really powerful idea here, the Mosquito effect. Think about it. Systemic failure hardly ever comes from one single catastrophic event. It's usually caused by 1,000 tiny unaddressed mosquito bites, those little micro-distractions and energy drains that just add up over time. The principle is to engineer a system that gets rid of them.
Next up is a really counterintuitive idea, the anxiety optimizer. Instead of seeing fear as a stop sign, Miles argues we should see it as a compass. That feeling of anxiety, it's often pointing directly at the very thing you need to do most. The goal is to use that energy as fuel, not as a reason to back down.
This next part is absolutely crucial for the whole system to work. It's the action bias, and it's the perfect antidote to analysis paralysis. Remember, in the pinball model, you're always reactive, but in the player model, you're proactive. This system prioritizes imperfect action over perfect planning, every single time.
This illustrates a critical system for self-preservation, the boundary magnifier. If you want to focus on what truly matters, you have to become a rigorous gatekeeper of your time and your energy. Engineering strong boundaries by mastering the art of saying no to the trivial stuff is what protects the resources you need for the vital stuff.
Okay, let's move on to the final phase. Part 3 is all about creating the right ecosystem to sustain this change, to make being intentional your new default state, not just some temporary fix you tried. You are the CEO of your life, right? So, who's on your board of directors? This principle demands that you actively curate your social circle. You hire mentors to guide you, and challengers who push you to be better. And just as importantly, you have to fire the energy vampires who just keep you stuck in that pinball machine. Next, you've got to avoid getting stagnant. The creative catalyst principle is all about staying curious, experimenting, and cross-pollinating ideas from different fields. Passion isn't static. It needs novelty and it needs challenge to really thrive. In a world that's always changing, being adaptable is everything. Principle 11 reminds us that leadership isn't just some title. It's about influence. And that influence always begins with leading yourself first. The conscious leader operates with integrity and empathy, understanding that the goal isn't just personal success, but lifting others up along the way.
And finally, the resilience reservoir. Because let's be honest, this journey is not a straight line. You are going to face setbacks. The pinball machine is gonna tilt sometimes. This principle is about building the emotional and physical grit to make sure that when you fail, it's a lesson, not a final destination.
So now that we have the full blueprint assembled, the book leaves us with one final critical reframing of its entire core idea.
And here it is. This right here is the central takeaway. The modern world is always telling us to find our passion, as if it's some treasure we just have to stumble upon. Miles's entire framework argues the complete opposite. Passion isn't found, it is architected. It is built, brick by intentional brick, through disciplined action.
Which leaves us with this final, really empowering question. You don't control the design of the game, the placement of the bumpers, or the speed of the ball, but you are always in control of the flippers. The choice to be the pinball or the player, that choice is always yours.